Welcome to the PACA webinar for Thursday, January 13th. We're fortunate today to have Erin Austin. Erin is a consultant and attorney. She combines her 25 years of practicing law, including roles as COO and general counsel at IP-driven companies, to help founders of expertise-based firms build and protect saleable assets so that the business is ready to sell when the founder is ready to exit. Erin's special talent is finding the Rembrandt in the attic, that hidden or overlooked asset that can be leveraged for maximum value. She's quite accomplished and is addressing a topic of interest to many PACA members. Erin.
Thank you so much, Sean. Also, thank you, Teresa, for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to talk to everyone. And I do hope it will be a conversation as well as educational for all of you. So, two things that you must do if you want to sell your business. Now, one thing I want to go back to what Sean said, and I know that some of you here are thinking about technology products, and the focus for today will be on the service-based business and making sure that we understand that even if you are service-based business, that you should still be developing assets in your business. And so let's go to the issue of selling. So why would any of us want to sell our business? You know, if you're like me, you have a comfortable, income that you get from your business, a comfortable lifestyle, you have great relationships, you love what you're doing, and you're not ready to retire. But we need to think about, when we think about building our businesses, it's not just about retiring. Everyone here is a high achieving person. And, because we use our brains and not our bodies for what we do, we will have very long, productive lives. And so when we think about, selling our business, it should be about, funding the next challenge. There'll always be something. There'll come a time when you want to do, maybe there's another idea, a business idea you want to pursue, or maybe there are personal goals that you have with volunteering or other things that you want to be able to fund. So we want to make sure that the years that we put in developing our expertise and developing our businesses, that we're ready to move on to the next challenge, that it is a well-funded challenge. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So first, I want to kind of put the framework around ownership. Again, when you have a service-based business, you have your intellect, of course, you own it. But when we think about ownership, we have to think about assets. We have to have not only that, but we need to have assets that would have equity and would grow in value. So just when you think about, real estate, that you want to own real estate, you get the value of that equity. When you have assets in your business that can grow in value and you can get the benefit of that. So the asset today can be worth more than it is in the future. And so a lot of times income and wealth are confused. Income and wealth are very different. Income is that revenue stream that comes in versus wealth represents what you own. And so we want to make sure that in our service-based business, that we're not just thinking about income, that we're also thinking about ownership, thinking about assets, therefore ownership, therefore wealth. So that's kind of your continuum there. So, I should have started my timer. So how to build a saleable business. So I use the word saleable, and that confuses some people sometimes. I can see like I'm talking to someone on Zoom. I talk to everybody on Zoom these days. And I use the word saleable, and they want to use the word sellable, and they're very, and they kind of stumble over the use of the word. And the reason I use saleable is, well, because it's different than sellable. And so as an example, let's say you own a car. So you own the title, you don't own anything against it. You're the sole owner, you're of legal age. There's no reason that you could not sell this car. It's absolutely sellable, right? But let's say that car, is a rust bucket, the top is being held together with duct tape. And, every time you try to start it, you got to like jiggle it just right to get it going. And the fender has been, replaced with some other color, from the junkyard. No, that's that same car. You can absolutely sell it. You own the title. There's nothing against it. Your legal age, sound mind, you can sell the car, but is it saleable? And no, it's not saleable, because to be saleable, there has to be a market for it. There has to be a value in that asset to a third party. So, so saleable, there's market value. Sellable is just you have the legal right to sell it. So that is why I use saleable. So when we're talking about businesses, and in particular about selling a business, the corollary to the sellable versus saleable is whether or not a potential buyer would, when evaluating your business, would say, it makes more sense for me to buy your business or for me to build that capacity in-house. And so the things that they'll be looking for as they make this analysis are things that would be very difficult or impossible for them to recreate in-house. So let's say that you provide software development services, and some of your clients are healthcare providers, and you help them kind of develop their systems to process healthcare information, and so they outsource that to you, and then they're thinking, should I build that from scratch in-house, or should I buy a service that already uses that? And so if the analysis will depend on the difficulty it would be to recreate what you're doing. So we want to make sure that we have a saleable business by making sure that we have something that the buyer couldn't easily recreate, and you also have to have a business that can run without you in it, unless you want to go with your business to the buyer. So the main elements, again, on the buy side are exclusivity and saleability. And so we're going to take each of these in turn, first talking about exclusivity, talk about building assets, and then we will talk about your positioning, which are both important elements of exclusivity when you have a service-based business. Not all of these examples would apply to, say, a manufacturing company. So exclusivity. So again, that means that you have assets, or meaning you own something in your business that would be very difficult or maybe even impossible for a third party to build in-house or build themselves. And so assets can be either tangible or intangible. We'll mostly talk about intellectual property and intellect-based assets in the service-based business. And then your positioning is the space that you occupy in the market. So when everyone's looking at the landscape of who provides, software development services, like what is your position literally in that market space? So first we'll talk about intellectual property. I think most of us are familiar with intellectual property. What separates intellectual property from other types of intellect-based assets is that intellectual property is actually protected and is a construct of intellectual property laws. And so when you fall into one of these four buckets and you have ownership of copyright, trademarks, trade secret patents, the intellectual property laws actually grant you exclusivity. They grant you a legal monopoly. I believe it's perhaps the only legal monopoly. So you get legal monopoly. So talk about exclusivity. Like when you have intellectual property, the only way for a third party to get that intellectual property is for them to acquire it from you. They cannot create their own. I mean, if they do it originally, if somehow they come up with the same thing without having any access to your assets, but they cannot copy it in any way without either getting a license from you or buying your intellectual property. So just to go over each of these buckets briefly, I'll just start by saying patents are generally not something that are going to be of relevance to the service-based business. And I'm not a patent lawyer. That is a very specialized area of law, but I think we're most familiar, with inventions and pharmaceuticals and things like that that have patents. So what we'll find mostly in the service-based business are copyrights, trademarks, and trade secrets. So copyrights are creative expressions that have been reduced into some concrete form. And by concrete form, that would mean pen to paper, digitally keyboard to computer, brush to canvas, the blueprints of an architect, sculpture. And so those has to be creative. So it's not just, a list of phone numbers. So it's something that is original, that has been made concrete in some way. And so that is eligible for copyright protection. Trademarks represents the source of a good or a service. So when you see the Golden Arches, which is McDonald's trademark, we know that if you see that trademark, it's after the source of that good is McDonald's. If you see, the FedEx symbol, then you know that the person providing that service is, FedEx. And even things like, colors can be a symbol, a trademark as well. To use FedEx, even if it blurred by, you would recognize, without even seeing it, you would recognize that FedEx colors. Or the UPS brown is also trademarked. You would recognize the UPS, someone else can't have a delivery service that has a UPS brown. That's on their trucks. That is UPS's trademark color. And I'm going to talk about trademarks just for a second here, just because I get a fair number of inquiries from people who want to trademark their, their framework. They have some way that they deliver services to their clients, and they want to have a trademark because they think that will be inherently more valuable if they have a trademark on their framework than just having my framework. So I'm going to use I'll say that, the trademark is only as good or as valuable as the service or product that it represents. So there's no inherent value in the trademark if there's not value in the product or service that it represents. So to use the, software developer example, I warned Teresa that I actually don't know what software developers do, so I may butcher my examples, so be gentle with me. But so let's say you are a software developer and you have a way of delivering, from the time you finish your intake with your client until you deliver your fully developed software project, it takes you 1 month, and it takes everybody else 6 weeks. It takes you 1 week, it takes everybody else 6 weeks, but you can do it in 1 month. So you have this framework that you call, the Boost software framework. But the way that you do it is because you work, 20 hours a day for 7 days in order to deliver that outcome in a week. Well, there's no value in, working 20 hours a week in order to deliver the outcome. So yes, you can get your trademark if you want, but no one is going to place value on the way that you deliver that result in a week. So the trademark again doesn't have a kind of value that's independent of the good or service that it represents. Trade secrets, unlike copyrights, trademarks, and patents, trade secrets are not registered. They get intellectual property law protection by the actions that you take to protect it, to keep it secret. So one, to be a trade secret, it has to be kind of the economic engine of your business. So for example, your financial statements may be confidential. You want to keep them secret. You don't want them published on the internet, but your financials are not your economic engine, so they wouldn't qualify for trade secret protection. It doesn't mean that if somebody took them, they wouldn't be, breaching the contractual obligations they have under an NDA, but they would not get intellectual property law protection. So it has to be part of the economic engine of your business, and you have to take reasonable measures to keep it secret. So if you have employees, you're making sure they're signing agreements, and those agreements include confidentiality provisions. If you have to use a contractor, then again, absolutely, and they'll have access. I mean, obviously, sharing with fewer people is better than sharing with anyone, But you make sure if you do have to share on an as needed basis that you are using non-disclosure agreements to protect those assets. So the trade secrets, I will say, like, will take us kind of to our next bucket of assets, because again, like, unlike the others that are registered and therefore public, the trade secrets tend to be those things that you use inside of your business to deliver results for your clients, but that aren't publicly known. So here we're going to talk about intellect-based assets. So here, these are things that you use inside your business that help you deliver results for your clients. And some of them, as you can see, may very well also be intellectual property, but they are not necessarily intellectual property. So let's talk about like processes, for instance. They may be trade secrets. And so if you have, a super secret way that you provide services that you would want to protect, obviously that would be part of the economic engine of your business, and you would want to use your confidentiality provisions to keep them protected. They're very valuable. The problem that we have, a lot of service providers, myself included, is that we aren't thinking about processes as assets. They're in our brains. A lot of us don't have SOPs. We just know how to do it because we do it all. We've been doing it for 20 years and we know how to do it. But if we want to build an asset out of it, then we do need to document it. And that is where the value comes in for a third party. A third party wants for it to be valuable to a third party, it has to be something that they could use without you. And so one of the ways I like to illustrate the value in a process is to look at it in the context of a physical asset-based business, when you think of as being more physical asset heavy. So let's say you had a tire manufacturing company. And so you have, your real estate, and you have your factory, and you have equipment, and you have inventory, and but you have this process that you use to manufacture no waste tires. And so if a third party wanted to come and acquire that business, they could buy your inventory and your equipment and things, and it would be just kind of whatever the market rate is, right? The depreciated assets, the depreciated equipment, that's all that's worth. But the process for building a no waste tire, that is where all the value in that business is. Anyone can get a factory, get some real estate, get some equipment. It takes money, but anyone can do it. There's no exclusivity whatsoever in that. The exclusivity in that business and the value in that business is that process to create that no waste tire. And that is something obviously they would protect with trade secrets. And so when we think about the processes that we use in our business, I remember that is the value. That is that thing that in the hands of a third party would be exclusive, that exclusivity they're transferring from you to them. The other one I want to talk about is, data and insights. Data is very valuable. People love data, especially now. Data-driven insights, extremely valuable. If you've been in your industry for a very long time, there'll just be things that you understand about the way the business works. You'll have some, insights about where you see the business going. You may have some data just from the volume of transactions that you've looked at that would be kind of interesting to third parties. And so making sure that you capture those things, and there are a number of ways you can exploit those. We'll talk about business models later, such as licensing those assets to third parties who may be interested in it. And so, Sean mentioned the Rembrandt in the attic, which I did. I don't anymore do like these Rembrandt in the attic calls where service-based business would call in and we would talk about like, what they do, who they do it for, how they do it, and see if there is kind of that hidden asset, in their business that they're undervaluing. And so this particular woman, she did training and some management consulting. And so she rightly identified her training materials, assuming that they are original and not licensed, which a lot of people do license things like that. So if they're original materials, that's valuable intellectual property that she had there. And then she also had this data that she is a very well-defined niche. And she'd been doing it for a long time. And she worked with not legally a partner, but someone that she collaborated with a lot. And they served a similar client base. And so they developed this client, this database of, kind of price point type data in the industry that would be very valuable to a buyer. But they worked together informally. They developed it together. They had nothing in writing. And so when you have nothing in writing, when you're developing assets like this, you own them jointly. So she did not have exclusivity in that asset. So let's say she wanted to sell her business and someone would say, oh, you got this great data. I love this. And I want to buy it. And then they do the due diligence. They look at the asset and they see that she does not own it exclusively, no exclusivity, then she doesn't have the value there. I mean, is it possible she could go back and buy the rights from her partner? But that would be very complicated. And obviously that would kill that acquisition. So that's, kind of a hard learned lesson in when you're building these assets, make sure you own the rights in them. If you're hiring a subcontractor or working with a collaborator, make sure that you have in writing who owns what. Because if you don't have it in writing, if it's intellect-based, 99% of the time, you're not going to own it.
So Erin, this might be a time to bring Cam into the conversation. She asked a question earlier in the chat. She says, hi, I'm a singer, songwriter, artist, and I've has a lot of IP over my lifetime, painting, prints, songs, literature, poems, etc. Most of this IP has been done as a hobby for 20 years because I'm a project engineer at a full-time job. How do I protect what I have made, market it, and sell it without anyone knocking it off in the process?
Well, the types of materials that you've created, such as artwork and songs, those are all eligible for copyright protection. And they have copyright protection at the moment that they're created. So that they're yours, assuming you did not work with a collaborator and that and extent that they are original and they're not, samples. For instance, we hear about, sampling in music, that they are yours from the moment of creation. If you want to publish them and sell them, then you will want to make sure that they are registered in the Copyright Office. Even though you own the copyright, the only way to enforce the copyright against third parties is for it to be registered. So if somebody, rips off your artwork and you want to sue them, you have to have registered in the Copyright Office in order to be able to sue them. So that doesn't expire. I mean, if you created them 40 years ago, let's say, I'm realizing I don't know off the top of my head the term of the copyright, but so it will expire eventually. It can be, but probably within your lifetime it would not have. And so you go ahead and get it registered if you're going to sell them and make them public. But you own the copyright without having done anything.
I have may I also inject the question here related to copyright, probably, which is this. Nowadays, people are starting to talk about NFTs and things like that. Can documents be created and recorded within NFTs and thereby protect the ownership that way? Is that how does that work with regards to that?
Yeah, I don't completely know, but the NFT is not a documentation process. I understand. I think you might be thinking of Bitcoin, maybe, but for the copyright like NFT is considered I think it's artwork, or it's a creative, it is a creative product. I don't know if we call it artwork. I don't know what the bucket to put it in, because I guess it's NFT is its own bucket, but it is a creative expression that has been reduced in a digital form. So it is eligible for copyright protection. And then you would register that NFT with the Copyright Office. I'm not aware of another way of protecting copyrights other than through registration with the Copyright Office.
Got it.
That
Thanks.
addresses that. All right, so thank you for those questions, and please.
She had one follow-up. How much will
Which
it
one?
cost to enforce? Essentially, it looks like about 400 items.
Well, to register, the registration is fairly inexpensive. I believe it's about $30. I mean, registering the Copyright Office is fairly simple. That is a DIY. I mean, you could use a lawyer if you want to, but it can be done DIY. It can be done online. There are forms that they can help you fill that out. You have to send in a sample. So you send us a copy of all of the things that you want to protect, your lyrics, your copy of your artwork. And then you can register, I think it's about $30 a pop. So 30 times 400. Okay. All right. So, well, I was going to interject a question here anyway, which was, do you have assets in your business? Do you have processes? Do you have, training materials, original training materials? Let's go back. Data, when we talk about research, we're talking about primary research, not Google research. We're talking about insights, database, data-backed insights. Maybe you have original tools. Maybe, as a developer, you've created your own tools in your business. I'd love to hear if anyone has any assets in their business.
Yeah, I do have a question there. This is Hong. Even though, so for example, in terms of target markets, go-to market and things like that, right? The market research, even though not primary, leading along with the analysis and the setting of target markets, is that considered, how would I say, owned information, or because it's not primary, based on primary research, is that public, or is that considered, confidential?
So so research you may have done to get insights into your target market. Is that what you're asking about?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So I do. It's not like I commission a research study, but I research online, so it's not primary research, but based on a collection of different kind of market research. I do analysis and conclude, about target markets and things like that, right? And classify them. Is that considered my own property, or is that public property?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's an asset there because you use it. I mean, that informs your services and your marketing, right? And so it has value in your business for you to help you kind of go to market with your services. Whether or not that would have value to a third party would it be saleable is questionable, because it is derived from public sources, and it's certainly something I imagine something that somebody else could do. And so, so I think I'd make the distinction between being an asset that's yours versus one that would be of interest to a third party.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Erin.
I have a question. Basically, what I have for my business is a company name, Cisco, every 5 years, web address, which
the URL.
will probably want. Are those sellable?
Yeah, I mean, I would put those in the same category as the trademark that I mentioned. So someone would buy those only if they wanted to buy the business intact and continue to use your business name. Like there was, and we're going to talk about positioning actually next. This might be better answered there, but there needs to be some reason that having that name gives them access to something that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. Right?
Well,
and that's not just the name, but there's something else that they would get access to.
They wouldn't be as interested necessarily in buying the business intact, but they could apply it to whatever they want to do. There's not too many names like mine that are available for consulting in San Francisco. And the web address is similarly unique for that purpose. So they could create whatever consulting business they wanted. Wouldn't have to be buying my consulting business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I imagined that your name has a lot of value with your clients. So it could, maybe when we talk about positioning, it'll help answer this a little bit. But again, like, could they create a consulting business without your name and your URL? And so, why not? And it doesn't mean it has no value, but how much will they pay? Will they pay more than what you paid to register your URL?
Well, they can't get it until I release it. So
right, so they could get a different one.
Time has some value.
Yeah. All right. So, well, let's go to positioning, and that'll help answer some of these kind of more kind of positioning based questions. So again, the two pillars of exclusivity, one was assets, those assets that you own either exclusively through your legal monopoly or because you've developed them yourself and have kept them secret. And the other element is your positioning, and that is the position that you hold in the marketplace. What is your unique position in the marketplace? And so what separates you from all the other smart consultants? Everyone on this phone call is smart, but what is it that about your business that none of the other businesses have? And so there's a couple of ways that people, like influencers, if you will, in this space talk about it. Natalie Ekdahl, she runs BizChicks. She describes it as your referability. Like, how easy is it for someone to refer a client to you? Like, because your positioning is so tight that they know exactly who to send to you. So I'm going to use another software developer example. So you're a software developer and you specialize. This is an example of very strong positioning. Software developer who specializes in working with Shopify stores to make sure that their sites don't crash during, massive peak periods, Cyber Monday or whatever, where, hugely expensive problem to have. And so they know someone that, has a Shopify store that they've had problems crashing. They know immediately who to send that person to. It's not just every software developer. It's not just every Shopify developer. It's the one who works on this issue and knows how to solve this issue. Jonathan Stark of Ditching Hourly, some of you may have heard of him. He calls it the Rolodex moment, again, where they hear your positioning and they go, oh, I know exactly who needs to talk to you. And then also, my personal business coach, she calls it being the go-to gal. She works with women. So like being known for X, for Y. So the elements of strong positioning: expertise, niche, signature solution, thought leadership, and relationships. So when I look at positioning, I look at the what, that is your expertise, that's what you do. The who, that's your niche, who you do it for. The how, that is your signature solution or maybe your signature process, whatever it is, how you deliver results to your clients, that is uniquely yours. And then thought leadership is not just about, writing and speaking on a topic, but also bringing, your own point of view to it. So, you don't have to have thought leadership to have strong positioning, but it's really helpful in the service-based business to help you stand apart and be viewed as like the person who thinks so deeply about this issue. But the example I like to talk about is Carol Cox. So she has Speaking Your Brand is her company. And so she helps experts develop, a signature talk to develop their authority. And so, her niche is experts, her expertise is public speaking. Her signature solution is helping you develop your signature talk. But her thought leadership is very personal to her, that she uses helping people find their voice professionally in using their expertise in a way that they may feel more comfortable, and helping them find their voice there so they find their voice in other areas of their life. And she works with men too, but she works a lot with women who may feel where they feel more empowered once they learn to kind of find their public speaking voice, that they then use their voice, in other places in their lives. And it's very empowering. And it's important to her because she had the experience of feeling silenced as a young woman. So that is an example, a great example of thought leadership, that extra element that she brings to public speaking. And then relationships we're going to talk about after this. So funny thing, because Sean read my old positioning statement, which I still like that one too. It's always changing, honestly, which was during my bio. But this is an example of a positioning statement, which is different than a positioning. Positioning is the whole where you are in the marketplace. But your positioning statement is a way for you to very simply and easily explain to people like what you do, who you do for. And so this is Think Beyond IP guides expertise-based services firms on the journey from stable income generator to sustainable, scalable, and saleable business. So the business is a source of generational wealth. And so it hits most of the elements, doesn't hit all of them. In addition to, my why behind the generational wealth piece is, I want people to have the means to create the greatest impact with the people that they care about. So to create the greatest impact with their families, with the communities, and with the causes that matter to them. And so that's why I want to make sure that we have businesses that are helping us kind of self-actualize, if you will. So that's part of my positioning statement. And so I'm now gonna, there we go. So relationships, I did not include in that overall positioning statement, but they're super important and part of the exclusivity pillar because they are an important part of what value a buyer would get by acquiring you. Very deep relationships take time, right? And they may, in some elements, maybe they started personally, but they've developed into business relationship. It would have to be a business relationship, not a relationship with you, but your business's relationship, with your clients, with your, collaborators, with your vendors, in the, associations that you participate in, maybe your leaders in your, the industry. These are things that take time. And so that is something that the only way for a buyer to get the benefit of those deep relationships that took, perhaps decades to develop is to buy your business. So one, they have the benefit of getting them, basically shortcutting them into these deep relationships that would be very difficult, if not impossible, to develop themselves. So that's your exclusivity piece. And then the other thing about relationships is that they are going to be a wonderful source of buyers when you are ready to exit. So again, with the vertical integration, those relationships with your clients that you've been providing a certain service for them, and maybe they prefer to bring that in-house. So that would be a great buyer for you. Vertically integrating downstream, with your vendors or suppliers. The relationships that you have, like in the industry, when a competitor is looking to expand, then they would know your business and be looking at your business. So relationships are very valuable on a couple of different fronts. And then
So,
the other,
Erin, two quick questions. One, several people have asked about the slides. They're very impressed with them. Are you able to make those available?
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. And then secondly, we've had a question from Charles Nolan about retaining a percentage of revenue. He's looking at how to structure the transaction. So,
Oh, during a sale?
During a sale, have you helped in that area at all? Is that an area you want to comment about?
Yeah, I am not a broker, so I don't sell businesses. I make sure that they are saleable so that you have assets that can be transferred to a third party that have value. But generally the way that business brokers work is that they get a commission on the sale price.
I think his question in terms of the sale is an earn-out period where there's an overlap period where he continues to work in the business, and the value is essentially his ability to help retain clients through some transition period, and he's compensated as a percentage of the revenue for that period. Have you seen that happen?
Yeah, no, usually the earn out works is, so let's say the sale price of your business is $5 million. And so they will give you at close, you'll get, say, 50% of it at close. And then there'll be some period that you continue to work on the business. And that so long as you hit the revenue targets, then you get the other half, like at the end of like the year, whatever the earn-out period is, then you get the other portion that's been held back.
Have you seen retention bonuses as part of that, where if some fraction of clients or customers renew, if it's some kind of subscription or recurring revenue business? Have you seen that as part of that?
I mean, yeah, the metrics for what will be success to the buyer would determine how you earn out. So could it be, I mean, generally it's revenue, but it could be, or profits, depending on how it's structured. But it could be measured in terms of, keeping clients on board. But usually it's a financial measure.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And okay. So just talking generally about positioning is that, the smaller you are, the more important positioning is to you. So, when a client, is going to naturally be risk averse, they want to make sure that when they hire someone to fix their problem, that it's going to be done. And if they haven't worked with you before, the stronger your positioning is, the more confidence they can have in your ability to fix their problem. If you're that Shopify store, you can go to any software developer, or you can go to the software developer that knows how to fix crashing sites during peak periods. And so that is why that's so valuable to have that strong positioning. So question to you all, do you have clear positioning? This here is kind of one of the ways kind of to structure a positioning statement. Like, I am a software developer who helps Shopify stores with this, crashing sites during peak times. So anybody want to share their positioning statement? Okay, we'll work on it. All right, so the two pillars, remember, exclusivity, sustainability. Those are the two things that make a business saleable, a service business saleable. So for service-based business, I see I messed up that. Can it run without you? If you are not just the owner, but also the operator, that's a problem. Can it scale? So scaling means that when you increase your revenue, you also increase your profit. So we can all increase our revenue by working longer, but that's not scaling, that's just working longer. And then, do you have revenue visibility? And basically that means the buyer can look at your projections and they can see that you have the business to support your projections. And that is what's called revenue visibility. And so the keys to being a sustainable business: independence from the founder. making sure that you have those processes in place that so that you aren't, the business is not relying on your active participation in 100% of the revenue generation. Obviously, the buyer is going to have some responsibility for filling that role. It can't be that you have to go with the business, but they have to make sure that there are, preferably there's a team. You don't have to have a team, but you would have a team in place that would go with the sale of the company, that could replicate the success that you have in the business. So, and it has to be able to replicate that success without you as a founder. Then you have to have a business model that is scalable. Obviously, a model that decouples your income from your time is going to be a model that can scale. And then you need to have that solid foundation. Like, are you using contracts? Do you have insurance? Do you have the right type of, business entity? Some of them easy to fix, some of them very difficult to fix. So you want to make sure you have that solid foundation that gives the buyer confidence that everything is not going to fall apart the second they acquire your company. So to take each of these in turn, independence. So some of the things that you can do is, systematize the processes within your business, delegating to your team. It can be internal or external. Generally, in order to scale, you're going to have to figure out a way to use less expensive resources than you. You are the most expensive resource in your business. You are the expert. So those pieces that don't require your active involvement are pieces that can be done by other people less expensively. One of the ways that like expertise-based businesses try to grow is by adding more experts. But more experts, that's a flat revenue, right? You're still like, yes, I'm bringing in more money, but I still have this super expensive resource that's creating the money. So yes, you can grow that way. Yes, you can increase your revenue that way, but you don't increase your profits that way. In order to increase your profits, you have to find some leverage in your business so that you're getting more out of your inputs than you would otherwise, and so these are some ways to bring leverage into your business through systems, through delegation, to outsourcing, and of course, to automation, to the extent that you can, are all great strategies. And then for your business model, again, trying to find a model that decouples your time from your income from your time. And so some of the, I'm sure you're all familiar with retainers, the productized service, that's when you have a fixed scope, fixed price service. Let's say you, to the Shopify developer, they can, set up your cart, and it's a fixed price, like it's $1,000 and you get it. And this is exactly what I do. And you'll get it, 3 days from now and you'll be set up. Subscription and license and certification. So these are all ways to create something and then be able to sell it or give access to it to multiple people. And so when we talk about things like the data that we talked about before, perhaps there's data or insights that you have that you can have a fee-based subscription to access that. If you have training materials, you can let other people use your training materials through a license, either other trainers or maybe you have clients, instead of you going in and delivering those that training personally, you can license the training to the in-house trainers, and they can train the employees. And then certification would be just kind of the next step up, from the license, instead of just giving them access to your training materials in order to use your trademarks and be able to say, I'm certified in providing this training, then you have a certification program. Access could be something like a mastermind or a conference where you charge for people to get access to you and to other people in your circle who all provide value to each other. And then value-based pricing, that can be an elevated skill, that consultative selling where you're working with your client or prospective client to talk about what the value of the transformation would be to them. And so let's say the value of that transformation would be, through the consultative selling process, you determine that the value of the transformation would be $2 million is what they would expect the benefit to be from this transformation. And so then, would someone pay 10% in order to get, would someone pay 10% in order to get the transformation? Yeah. So let's say typically in a quarter, you would charge $50,000, you'd earn $50,000 billing your time in a quarter. But it would take you a quarter also to present this transformation. With value-based pricing, instead of getting $50,000 for your time for that transformation, you're getting $20,000 because it's based on the value of the transformation to the client. It's about the value to the client, not about your time. Does anyone have any questions? I know I'm going a little fast because anything else on that one? Okay, so I love to work with clients to help them stop diagnosing for free. A lot of times, when we have complex services that we provide, we go in, we do an analysis, and then we use that analysis in order to prepare our proposal. So one of the ways to stop doing that for free is to have some sort of paid assessment or SWOT analysis, so you aren't diagnosing for free. I think, some of the influencers, they like to say, doctors don't diagnose for free. Why do consultants diagnose for free? So, so that is a way to build trust with the client. If you have not worked with the client before, for them to go in on a, 6 month engagement with you without having experience with you is difficult. And so that's a way to kind of develop the relationship, as well as the win-win of you not diagnosing for free. And then the last piece of sustainability is revenue visibility. So that means that the acquirer is confident in the predictions of your earnings. And so you have to make sure you have that foundation in place, that you have the processes, that you have, maybe you have recurring revenue. Acquirers love recurring revenue. They know exactly what the business will be making, so long as they don't, screw it up, that they know exactly what the business will be bringing in the next year after they acquire the business. But you don't have to have recurring revenue. You could have other things that are predictable in the business. You can have a very predictable lead generation process. There's some people who have extensive email newsletters, and they know every time they put an offer on that email newsletter that they can sell something, and it's very predictable. Even though they don't have recurring revenue, they have a predictable way to bring in sales. And so there is more than one way to have a business that supports the projections. But having, for your service-based business, it's generally going to be having very strong processes in place. So we'll try this. Anyone have a business model that decouples your income from your time? We'll work on that too. So that is it. So exclusivity and sustainability, those are the keys to having a saleable business. And so I am happy. If anyone stick around and has questions, I'm happy to talk about more. And you'll get this with the slides, how to contact me.
Cool. Thank you very much. Other questions for Erin? This is quite thorough. This is very well laid out and very well articulated. The whole taxonomy of value. I guess in our case, we do a bunch of things. Mainly, we have to, as we say, ride the bike. You didn't use it, but you have to do. But we do sell workshops and books that have some break that relationship to some extent.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean the one to several in the workshop.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So people, but by the time you get done with the promotion, you're still riding the bike. Well, I think as they say, I take it by your silence, ladies and gentlemen, that that we've answered your questions. I'm going to break
One-
here and, oh, go ahead, Charles, yes.
One quick one, particularly in dealing with new ventures. They tend to be horribly underfunded, and many PATCA members don't even want to talk to them.
Mhm.
So offering them what I'll call a break-even rate and taking future equity through the safe, as many of them are not to the point, simple agreement for future equity. And by doing that over a period of time, you would actually have assets, real equity that might have value for someone like yourself to facilitate the contracts and whatever in the sale.
Mhm. Yeah, very interesting.
I retain ownership of trade secrets until paid and have won trade secret litigation. So I'm very good at defining what is a trade secret, identifying that the client has no idea first, and then saying, okay, here's a solution. It's a trade secret. It's yours if you pay me.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to, I mean, if you sell it to your client, you don't have it anymore, but perhaps you give them the deliverables that include a license to use it within the deliverable. Yeah.
Well, they want to see what you can deliver. And I've heard several PATCA members express the frustration that, gee, if I tell them do this and then this, they say thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that is a real danger. And no, you should not be giving your secrets away for free, giving your services away for free. And that is the importance of having that positioning, like that they understand that you can deliver the solution or the outcome that they want. Yeah. Definitely.
in business, if we do everything right, there's no need for anyone to lose. And that's my passion. I want to see them all win.
So we have one last question from Chris Eddington. Chris, you want to,
Erin, question here. I use a lot of licensed material to do the things that were in one of your slides where you automate and kind of remove yourself from the business. And I also use that licensed material to deliver my services to the client. And I'm in a service, my service is project management, program management to an IT industry. Is that still an asset or is it not an asset?
It is an asset. The question is whether or not an acquirer would be able to access that asset without you. So it depends on kind of the other, so that really requires kind of the other pieces around it. So let's say I have a client who uses lean documents, I think it's lean. And so, but he works with a very particular market where he works with the owners of construction company type businesses who've grown up as kind of operators. They now have built teams. They haven't figured out really how to delegate or how to build, well-functioning teams. And so he helps the owners kind of become CEOs and get out of the weeds of their business. And so, yes, he uses lean documents, but he has made very specific, he's made them, he's customized them for his market and for the particular pain points that he knows his clients have. And so if someone were to want to, acquire him because they, they have other clients that are in the construction thing and they want to add this team building element to it, that would be valuable. So that's why kind of that whole package of the positioning can be really important, even when you don't have your own original materials that you're using. So depends.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
well, on that happy note, I'm going to clap hands for Erin and wish you all the rest of your day a productive day.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Enjoyed it.
Thank you, Erin.
I was going to ask a question actually, but I realized I have mute off.
Oh.
I still don't have a clear understanding whether one can sell their company name And,
The answer
Address.
is yes. It's sellable.
okay,
Sellable. Question is whether or not it's saleable.
well, I guess that depend on what somebody might want to use it for, 'cause then how you, how much they want San Francisco in their name.
I think so.
So the trademark is sellable, the IP, the domain name is saleable. If you've got a Twitter
It's
handle,
sellable. So
So-
make sure we're using the
yeah,
right.
I know
So
you're
he owns it. I mean, I assume you own it free and clear. You can
he can
sell it.
transfer, he can
It's-
transfer.
Right.
I can
Right.
So
transfer.
it's transferable. His question
Right.
is it transferable? Yes, it's transferable.
Yeah.
Her point is no one may want to pay for it, but that's, that's on you, not on the process itself enabled
Right.
as it is possible.
And then the company name is not trademark, it's just, I have exclusive use to it by the city, for which you have to pay every 5 years.
Right.
You have a
then-
business license, so like a
Yeah.
that's a business license. You
Yeah.
might see if you could get it trademarked.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that. For the name?
For the name, because that makes it much harder for people to pry you off the domain name.
Okay. That's a good idea. I'll have to look into that. Okay,
All
Thank
right, I think we've covered this one fairly well. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yes. Thank you so much.
you. All right.
Bye.